enthusiast. I love to look and build and cut and have a sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you what, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. An enthusiast. Sycamore, oak, aspen, pine, and fir, hemlock, maple, willow, dogwood, and poplar, ash, hickory, beech, tamarack, and cedar, hawthorn, jack pine, buckeye, cherry, and birch. 'Cause I'm a wood enthusiast. I love to look and cut and build and have a sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you what, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. 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 Enthusiast.
Welcome to Wood Enthusiasts, where it might get naughty. Check out my friend Larry Woodstone and his friends, the Wood Enthusiasts. Oh yeah, sweet sassy molasses.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wood Enthusiasts. And if you're a first-time comer, we are so excited. We're so excited to have you join us because we know we've got a lot more followers and, thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the nation, across the globe, to be honest. They're watching us and they're curious. They're curious about what we're all about, what the Wood Enthusiast community is really about. Just earlier today, we had a message on our Facebook, and the Facebook message asked us about some restoration issues with a boat. There's an old canoe, an old all wood canoe, and he wanted to know some details about what kind of wood it was. So I needed some pictures, and we went ahead and gave some advice on restoration techniques and things like that. And that's kind of what we offer. Oh, and look at this! I've got Gary calling right here. Gary, I'm just right in the middle of an intro.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was told to call this number.
Yeah, no, Gary. This is Larry Woodstone, and we're just right in the middle of our intro for our show for our next episode.
Do I have another 5 to rub some down?
Oh my goodness! Are you doing a rub fresh, Gary?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you rub fresh in that Purple Heart that I sent you, Gary?
No, I finished that last week.
As some of you guys know, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, sometimes, being a little bit famous and a little bit of a celebrity in the wood enthusiast world, me and Gary get some specialty wood sent to us, and I got some Purple Heart sent to me last week that I cut off some portions for myself, and I sent Gary some. Didn't I, Gary?
It was very lovely of you, actually.
And Gary really likes it. Gary loves Purple Heart, obviously. But it's a very dense wood. It's a very hard wood, Gary, so it's not easy to rub fresh.
No, I actually took it over to Diane. She was quite impressed with it.
Oh, sure, yeah. Diane's got some really good grits. She's got some 40 grits, I think, too.
She does.
Gary, I was just mentioning that we had Kurt contact us on Facebook today, and he was asking us about, the boat that he wanted to restore that had been indoors for years and years, and he wanted to know what kind of wood it was, and he wanted to know some of the techniques for restoration.
Right, yes, of course.
Yeah, and Gary and me spent some time talking to him and kind of walking him through the process because we are, as experts in the field, as wood enthusiasts, we're not only enthusiasts, but we're experts in the field too. Sometimes people wanted to call us, wood experts.
That's correct.
But Gary said, and I love this. I love when Gary says this, but Gary said, I'm an expert, but most importantly, I'm an enthusiast, because even if he wasn't an expert, he'd still be an enthusiast. And that's something I love that Gary says.
Well, I find it goes hand in hand.
And that's what Gary always says too. And like I say I filter through the woods, and I like to let people filter through the woods, and that's something that's really important.
And a little tip to Kurt, I don't know how to write on the messenger of the BlackBerry. However, you could use gopher wood for the hull of your boat.
No kidding. That's a biblical reference, isn't that right, Gary? Gopher wood.
Well,
it's something that
yes,
Noah's Ark.
Noah used it.
Noah used it on his ark.
Yes, absolutely.
And, a little bit of history on wood. Still today, people aren't sure exactly what gopher wood was and what wood they're referencing. And Gary, on that note, and I didn't tell you this, but we've talked for years about this, and this is interesting. But Gary, the giant sequoia, it can grow as high as 200 feet tall, but it's also as wide as 100 feet thick, 104 feet thick at its widest. And when we're talking about that kind of wood, gopher wood or sequoias, it's actually known as one of the largest organisms in the world, Gary.
Yeah, no, I think it was a fir tree.
No, that's a coniferous, Gary. We're talking about the sequoia.
Right, but I just assumed gopher, and it was part of the fir tree.
No, Gary, it's spelled Gopher, Gary.
Right.
Gary, is that one of your jokes? Did I miss one of your Gary? Did I miss one of your jokes? One of your little puns that everybody gets? They get a little
zinger.
One of your zingers?
You might have.
Was that one? That was one of the classic Gary zingers.
You might have. I was going between that and you can't find a gopher wood because they pop out of the ground.
Oh,
gophers.
Because you go for fur. And then there's the little animal that you're kind of, and see, for our newcomers, for the people that are just kind of clicking in here and they're thinking, what is going on with these guys? And obviously you're here and you recognize our voices because there's a little bit of fame and notoriety there. But this is just something that we offer. It's kind of some off the cuff. I don't want to take this lightly, Gary, because we have dozens of people behind us producing and writing and planning these episodes, and they don't come at a whim, really, do they, Gary? They don't.
No, they do not.
So
a lot of effort.
There's a lot of effort, and a lot of people that are writing, these things and this stuff, and there's a lot of fact checking and a lot of Googlers. We have 2 people that are Googlers, that are just Google. They're Googlers, and that's what they do, and they don't use Bing because Bing isn't a very good service, Gary.
No, but Ask Jeeves is really good.
That's Alta Vista, isn't it, Gary?
I don't know.
I just wanted to take a second to go to commercial because we have, for some of the new people here, and this is the new year, Gary. Me and Gary talked, and we said, we want to invite people on because there's 20 episodes ahead of us, and they might not listen to them all, so they might just hear this one for the very first time, Gary. And we wanted to say that we've got some incredible sponsors, but one of our favorite sponsors is Clutterbuck Industries, and I'll speak on behalf of the entire wood enthusiast community. That they have, Gary, and I know Gary loves this, but they have some of the driest wood, some of the driest lumber. They go out of their way. They kiln dry all their lumber. And that's something we really appreciate, is just really dry, perfectly straight, perfectly firm lumber. And that's something that's special to us. So we're going to go ahead and have a little commercial spoken by our very dear friend, Pastor Reverend friend, Josh, for Clutterbuck Industries.
You looking for wood? Look no further than Clutterbuck Industries. Clutterbuck Industries has the driest wood in the nation. Run by Glenn Sr. and 2 of his 3 sons, Stephen and Jonathan, Clutterbuck Industries is known for their honesty and integrity. There's a quality of character that you can come to expect from Clutterbuck Industries as they continue their focus on premium lumber and construction.
Well, thank you so much for coming back and to our new guests, our new customers, and our new, we have a lot of, thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the globe, as I mentioned earlier, across the globe that are listening to us, Gary, and that. Gary knows that. Gary's not new when it comes to his celebrity, and it's kind of frustrating for him because Gary's very private. Gary and Nance, his wife's name's Nancy. I call her Nance. I've been calling her Nance for years. She's very private, and Gary's very private, and they live, they live on Old Muskoka Road in Muskoka, and they don't want anybody to know where they live. It's private. They live by the big black barn, and that's very private. Isn't that right, Gary?
Well, that's correct, Larry. I just want to touch on our last sponsor there. Something interesting, although I do really appreciate the dry wood. Did you? Well, sorry, I'm going to now speak to the listener, not to you, Larry. You know this.
Of course, obviously.
You know,
Gary, that goes without saying, Gary.
That's correct. So this is to the listener. Did you know that wet wood, unlike the dry wood, actually can conduct electricity.
Oh, of course. Oh, sorry. This is for the listeners.
That's correct. Yes, yes. It was more of a aha moment for our listeners.
Well, we use it, Gary, as you know, in my family, we use it as conduit.
Yes,
we use it as conduit all through
smart.
we keep our our wood moist, and we use it as conduit all throughout our house, Gary.
Well, something you probably didn't know, Larry. I'm going out all in here, but do you know that all wood is biodegradable?
Well, of course, Gary. It's nature. Of course, Gary.
That was actually one of the aha moments for me, is realizing that wood is biodegradable.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Gary, and this is for a large part of our wood enthusiast community, but something that I find exciting, and that, Gary, you know how excited I get about things, but wood actually never dies of old age. And a lot of people don't realize that, but trees are only ever killed by things like the elements outside of their control. Things like insects or disease and people, for example. And we're okay with that. Me and Gary, we're not okay. We're not okay with the insects and disease. That's why we like to spray our trees. But when it comes to people, that's what trees are there for. So I'm okay with that.
People who don't use pesticides are bizarre.
So and that's exactly it. But Gary, there are trees that can live up to 1,000 years old. And that's because they don't die of old age. Okay. And I think that's really important for people to realize. That's very important. But at the same time, Gary, there's trees that don't grow, up to, up to 1,000 feet tall, like we were talking about. There's trees that don't grow up that tall. There's actually the dwarf willow. And Gary, you were talking about this on one of our episodes on YouTube. Gary was talking because it's very offensive. The dwarf willow he finds that very offensive because we don't like to offend people, Gary, and you don't like to use the word dwarf.
No, the little willow.
So we call it the small person's willow. But that's actually up in the north. That's up in the Arctic, and I know that because I lived up in the Arctic for years and years and years and years and years. And sometimes they only grow a couple of inches tall. They grow. We're talking ankle height. These dwarf willows will grow around to about the height of your ankles. So that's very interesting when it comes to trees. Not a lot of people know that, Gary.
They can tickle your feet.
Well, they can tickle your fancy too, because it's a very nice tree.
That's correct.
It's a beautiful tree.
Hey, Larry. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh yeah, wonderful actor. He's a ninja, Gary.
Yes. I would say he's a hardwood.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's definitely hardwood. He does some of my favorite movies, Gary. Bloodsport. Bloodsport was one of my favorite movies.
I liked Mortal Kombat.
Gary, we're talking earlier about how some trees don't die of old age. But some things that they do die of, and we talked about this in another episode. We talked about pesticides and, the need for people to use it and spray it. And, some people refuse. But this is very interesting. This is one of my most fascinating facts. And as people know, then they get to know us. They know that we're a wealth of facts and we're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to wood. But actually, Gary, what people don't realize is that there are trees that actually talk to one another. And you know that. We've talked about this before, Gary.
Yes, I believe J.R.R. Tolkien covered that very well in his series.
That's right. And that's what he was referencing.
That's correct.
In Lord of the Rings, you see a series of trees. They're called Ents, and they speak. But in real life, also, not just in the movies, that there's willows that when they're actually threatened by insects, they emit a chemical warning to all the other trees in the area, Gary. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that they start to secrete. So when the trees hear this kind of chemical sound, and I'm not sure what it sounds like. Maybe we'll look it up and try to post it. When they emit this sound, they secrete tannin. It's kind of a sap. It's kind of a sap that is in these willows. What's that? Oh, similar to that. That's kind of the sound. That's kind of the chemical warning. And this tannin that the other trees will release when they're warned will kind of put off the invaders. So that's true. So people say, people like Glenn would say, oh, trees are so stupid. Trees are so stupid. They're so dumb. Well, sorry, but willows can actually talk to each other and emit a chemical sound and, support each other and warn each other of invaders. So that's not necessarily the case, Glenn.
Glenn has a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah. So, but he's not even a part of this organization. No. He's not a part of this organization anymore because we've had some issues with Glenn, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in later episodes because things are getting legal, and I know he just went to court, and we dealt. We're getting some of the reports back soon of what happened in court, and we haven't heard. But we're going to talk about that in our next episode because I think it's important.
Yes. I particularly like the wood ebony. It is it's the darkest wood out there.
This is really interesting that you're saying that, Gary. Do you mind if I tell you why this is interesting, Gary?
Do you want me to tell you why it's interesting?
Well, no, I was going to tell you why. I was going to tell you why I love the fact that you brought up ebony, Gary.
Oh, please do.
Well, this is very interesting. Most people assume that all wood floats in water, and they're not. They're not wrong, Gary. You know that they're not wrong, but that's not exactly true. Not all wood floats in water, and usually due to their density, Gary. Sometimes due to density, they won't. They won't be able to float. I'm just getting over the cold.
The Janka rating, right?
It's true, but there's 17 different species that, and sorry, I'm not going to be able to remember them all, but things like the African blackwood, the African ebony, as you just mentioned, the black ironwood, the Brazil wood, the cocobolo, the Eastern Indian satinwood, Gary, you love that one.
Yep.
The Iki, the greenheart, the IB, the kingwood, there's the Vitae, the Madagascar ebony, and then the marblewood. I think there's a satine too. Is it satine, Gary? The bloodwood? Is it satine? Is bloodwood the satine? I think that's right.
I believe.
This is satine.
Okay.
And then there's the snakewood, white top box. There's about 17 species that actually don't float. They sink right to the base, right to the bottom.
Right.
So it's interesting that you brought up ebony, Gary.
Yeah.
Because you've been carving. You've been carving a lot of ebony.
A lot of people appreciate holly, but because it's the whitest wood.
Oh, that's exactly it.
But I'm more of a fan of ebony.
Gary, why don't you tell the people the new hobby that you're taking up when it comes to some of those hardwoods, some of the purple hearts and the ebony? You're starting to create a product. Why don't you tell them what that is, Gary?
The special dust?
No, the cigars, Gary. Or not the cigars, the pipes.
Oh, the pipes. Oh, sorry. Well, I got a couple things on the go. But yeah, no, I'm looking at spinning and using a 40 grit and rubbing it down and creating little holes so that you can smoke a little pipe out of.
Oh, so Gary, you're creating some pipes from some rare woods.
Well, I'm actually more looking for a burl. If you know anybody who could send me a burl, I would appreciate that.
400 times, Gary.
I'm sorry?
400 times. Wood can insulate a house 400 times more than steel.
Oh, yes.
Than steel.
Yes.
It's 400 times warmer.
Yeah. Yep.
This is kind of an overwhelming episode when it comes to our facts, and people have been emailing us and saying, the drama. There's so much drama and there is, Gary. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of drama when it comes to the wood enthusiast community. We're a family, Gary. We're a family.
Well,
we go through a lot of issues, and there's obviously the backbone of the wood enthusiast community is not just the drama, but it's the knowledge. It's the knowledge base.
Well, something interesting.
Isn't
I
it,
just
Gary?
Drove by a steel factory.
Isn't it, Gary? It's the knowledge
Sorry?
base. It's the knowledge base, isn't it, Gary?
It is.
Yeah.
I drove by a steel factory yesterday, and it was on fire. And I realized to myself, I've driven by a couple steel factories that have caught on fire. I've never seen a wood factory catch on fire. So no wonder it's safer for your home, and it keeps you more insulated.
Well, that's interesting, Gary. Some people would call a forest a wood factory.
No.
That's not.
It's not.
That's not a wood factory. That's just a forest.
No, a factory with wood in it.
Like a mill.
A wood factory.
It sounds like you're saying a mill. You're talking about a mill. It sounds like you've said you're saying that mills don't burn down, but steel factories do because it's steel and they're idiots.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, steel can get very hot, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I use.
So can you. I've seen you get pretty spicy.
Oh, Gary, I've been known to get pretty spicy, and that's that's something I'm working on in the New Year's because, like I've told you a number of times, Glenn gets my blood boiling, gets me all spicy hot picante, but in our second season, our second season of Wood Enthusiasts that we have a show on YouTube called Wood Enthusiasts. Gary, you know that obviously. In our second season. We're gonna be doing this without Glenn because of how hot and spicy he kind of gets all of us.
Hey Larry, what do you think of General Sherman?
Oh, I'm sure talking about General Hospital. That's one of our favorite soap operas. Me and Bernice, we watch it on a daily basis. We like to record it, Gary, and we watch it at nighttime. No,
Larry, I said General Sherman. You know General.
Oh,
Sherman.
the Sequoia.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one of the largest sequoias. Yeah, that's known as General Sherman, Gary. That's a glorious.
Yeah, it's a lovely tree.
You know what? Maybe we could make that our image. We could talk about General Sherman. We could even title the episode that, Gary, because it's such an important topic.
It is.
It's a sequoia. It's a sequoia, Gary. They make guitars out of that, Gary.
At DBR, at breast height for our viewers, I can't believe how big it is.
Well, it can go nearly 104 feet wide. That's on record, Gary.
It's 79 feet at breast height.
That's unbelievable, Gary.
At breast height.
I'm fluffing air over here, Gary.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where the ball goes up and then it spits out. It's like one of those. It's like the old expression, where the ball goes out and it just spits it right out.
Oh, I'm glad I have friends who can talk about this with me.
And that's what our community is, Gary. And I'm so glad he said that, Gary. I'm so glad he said that, because our entire community, Gary, our entire community is based around a family. And we haven't been able to produce the show in the last 3 weeks because I've been extremely sick, Gary. Speak of the devil, I just did a little bit of a cough, but I've had pneumonia. And Gary, you know that I actually had the flu at the same time as pneumonia, and my children had ear infections, and we had bacterial meningitis, and we had a bronchitis, and our family was just torn apart by disease. And the other day, when I was at my lowest point, this is real, people. This is real. This is the kind of family that we have here. But when I was at my lowest point, I got something in the mail. The mailman came. And he showed up, and inside of it was a large Ziploc, and it was full of what it said magic dust. Yeah, and it had Purple Heart shavings and Black Ebony shavings, and it was full of sawdust from different types of very rare, wonderful, wonderful woods.
I'm glad you got that.
And it was, I separated out the dust into different types of trees, and I was able to sit there and smell and embrace kind of nature's presence. And that really brought me back. It grounded me, Gary, because I was hallucinating at times from dehydration. I was hallucinating, Gary. I really was, and you know that.
So you got the little bark teas then that was inside the.
I got package? The bark teas. I got all the different bark teas. And this is a tip from Gary to our community. Still got a little bit of the cough left from my pneumonia, but what Gary sent me was he sent me these slivers of cedar, cedar shanks, he called them, and he soaked them in. He said soak them in water. So I soaked them in water, and I put them underneath my armpits, and I tied my arms down. I had Bernice tie my arms down with the cedar shanks sticking in my armpits, and I put those in there for 2 hours, and I put myself in a really hot bath. And that, Gary, that was just, that was something else. And it doesn't help with sickness, obviously.
No.
But it was something that was very moving, that you would do that, kind of go above and beyond, Gary.
No, and I'm glad you sent me the video. Like I watched that, and you did the right technique for sure.
And it was the tie down. I had to get Bernice to do it 3 or 4 times, so it was really tight. And I stuck those suckers right underneath my armpits, straight up and down. And I tied my arms down real tight. Got into the bath, and there was the time, Gary, because I have a very big bath. I have a jacuzzi, and there was a time where I slipped down, and I couldn't get back up because my arms were tied, so I had to use my legs, and I was very sick and I was very weak. But man, that having those cedar shanks underneath my armpits, I'll tell you, obviously they did nothing for my sickness, but my goodness,
I saw that.
My goodness, Gary.
Larry, do we have to go to a commercial, or can we talk about something else here?
Let's just do a commercial break really quick. We'll be right back.
Okay.
With Wood Enthusiasts.
Clutterbuck Industries. We've been around a while. Ours is the driest wood.
Welcome back to Wood Enthusiasts, and sorry if you hear a little struggle in my voice, and Gary, you know that I've had pneumonia and I'm still struggling to even talk, and sometimes breathing, I get worked up on this show, and sometimes breathing too much gets me a little choked up in my airways.
Speaking of worked up, do you know when I got worked up?
Probably when you were listening to Ray, Gary.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman named Ray.
I listened to him the other day, and he's just ignoring us, and that gets me hop conte and spicy and fired up. It's just as much as you.
Well, he told me that fiberglass was wood.
Well, he's an idiot, Gary. We don't listen to idiots like that, Gary.
I was fired right up.
So for people that don't know, and there are probably a lot of people that don't know, because Ray kind of pushes himself out there to be a bit of a celebrity, and he's not. He's not there yet. But Ray works with an app company that we've been working with, and the app company is called The Farm. And they're
fantastic company.
They're an incredible company, and we've kind of been in development with them over some of their apps. There's one app that I've been working with that I've been, I'm going to play it for a few months before I can do a review with Gary, and we've been playing World Wrestling Management, and it's just incredible. It's just a wonderful app, and it's a 10 out of 10 in my books, Gary. It's a 10 out of 10. But that's not the app that they're known for. This is the first company in the history of mankind to put out these horse racing apps, Gary. Mm-hmm. And they play. There's a game called Catch Driver, which is well known. It's going across the globe. It's going across the world. And sure, we're being paid to say this, but at the same time, it's true. It's true, Gary. At the same time, sure, we're on, so to speak, we're getting paid, so to speak. But it's a revolution. But this is a revolution when it comes to horse racing. We love horses. Obviously, we love horses. We love nature. We're obviously going to love horses. In fact, I just finished carving out a saddle. I was carving out a saddle for a friend of ours named Ryan, who actually owns the company, and I spent a few months carving it with softwood so it wouldn't hurt the horse's back. But I had to get a mold and all this stuff, so I've been carving out.
I appreciate bareback more.
Well, of course you do, Gary. But at the same time, having a solid softwood saddle without the impediment of leather, it's a real nice bonus, obviously.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, we've been working with this company, and we've been kind of working on some of these apps, and they're working on our own app for us, and we're in development of that application. And then there's this gentleman named Ray who's also working with them and doing some commentary, and he's been really rude to us because I think he's jealous. He's a little bit jealous of some of our fame, some of our celebrity.
And ignorant. He's jealous and ignorant.
Well, he's not jealous of our ignorance. He's ignorant.
No, that's what. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, he's. He would say oh, you guys just know about wood, and I know about horses. And I'd say check your cluckers, like I always say, check your cluckers, Ray. Because that's not true.
I've heard you say that.
But I don't want this all to be about Ray, because this is about the wood enthusiast community.
That's correct.
And what I want is the wood enthusiast community to jump on board with us and really support the farm, because they have some incredible apps, applications for your cell phone, games that you can play that are just above and beyond. And I play World Wrestling Management. It's amazing. It's I've got my own character, Gary. The application, the game company has been so good to us that they're designing our own characters in the game. And if you guys don't believe that, download the game and you'll see a Larry and Gary coming up there soon, because once you get high in the game, you can actually buy us as part of a special thing, Gary.
Mm.
And that's really exciting for us because it's one of our favorite games. But we're going to be doing some live reviews on that, Gary.
Oh, obviously. I've
got a drumstick here, Gary. I got my daughter some drums. I got a really, really nice hard maple. It's a 5B. It's a hard maple drumstick, and you can hear it. You can hear I'm tapping the computers here. Steph is shaking her head saying, "Don't tap the computers. Don't tap the computers, Larry. You're messing everything up." But I'm tapping the computers with a hard maple drumstick.
Again, it's not made of wood, so it's not durable.
Oh, but the drumstick's made of wood.
Yeah, no, but the computers aren't.
No, of course not, Gary. Of course not, Gary. But moist, like you said, I have moist wood all throughout my house. It's a conduit, as you said.
Right, of course.
Yeah. Well, Gary, it was just a nice breezy. I didn't want all the drama, Gary. And I for our listeners out there, I called Steph and I called Lisa and I called some of the team, some of the production team, some of the writing team, and some of the music editors and some of the all the people that work on our team. And I said, I want a drama-free episode. I just want Gary, I just want Larry, and I just want to talk wood.
Mm-hmm.
And when Gary, we talk about the sequoia. We gave some great insight, and we talked about the cedar shanks, and that's really important.
Yep.
So this is really on par with what I was looking for tonight, Gary. And to be nice, it's just nice to have a conversation with someone like you who is so full of wisdom. So, I've known you for years and 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 years, and you're just so full of wisdom. And every time you open your mouth, it's like you're spew barfing, wealth, just a swath of wisdom. And sometimes it's too much for me to take in. And that's why I like to record our conversations, Gary.
Revolutions do not go backwards.
Last night, me and my wife were watching the French Revolution in Les Miserables. There's a movie, Les Miserables. And I noticed that those in the French Revolution, they created barricades, and guess what they used, Gary?
Wood.
Handmade wooden products, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, obviously, Bernice is like, pause it, just pause it. Let's take some pictures of this. So I was grabbing pictures of it. There's doors and there's chairs and there's, all sorts of different things, all sorts of different wood products that the French revolutionaries were building their barricades with. And I said, again, Bernice, this is just another perfect example of the power of wood,
you brought up a good point that I think
I know I did, Gary. I know I did, Gary. Yeah, you're right. I did bring up a really good point, Gary.
Yeah, well, we should talk to our younger listeners maybe on another podcast just about the importance of choosing a spouse that is so on par with you.
Oh, it's so important, Gary.
Yeah.
It's about being equally yoked. If you're going to, you're just going to get married and as a wood enthusiast, and obviously you're listening to this because you're a wood enthusiast, but, and your spouse is just obsessed with plastics and IKEA and Walmart garbage and trash. And then I would say, the old expression, take the garbage can, take the shotgun, and get things taken care of. The old expression.
That's right.
But obviously that's in reference to paper. In this case, I'm talking about spouses. You want to make sure you're equally yoked,
Yes, that's correct. Preferably with a hardwood.
Oh, of course.
The yoke,
of course,
should be made of hardwood.
Of course, if you're going to have two bulls, they're going to snap a piece of pine right in half. You got to make sure you get to use a very nice solid hardwood. That's what you want to do.
Exactly.
And that's important, Gary. And as we talk more in the show, hardwoods like, maple or oak or ash, birch, and almost any fruit trees really are the best for burning woods.
Right.
They're going to give you the hotter, the longer burn. That's why hardwoods are, kind of ideal when it comes to campfires. You could use, you can use some softwoods for tinder to get it fired up, but they're just going to burn right through.
Goes like that.
But
I just snapped my finger.
When in the real world, when you're talking about these woods, these hardwoods, they have the least amount of pitch and sap in them, and they're generally going to be cleaner to handle. So that's what you guys are going to want to use when it comes to hardwoods. And in Canada, we're going to be talking about different types of trees than we are, in the southern states. So you got to know your location, you got to know your region, you got to pick a spouse that knows accordingly, Gary.
That's correct.
So thank you so much for joining us, and we're so excited about our, I think this is our second episode in 2019, but it's also, it's also on the long list of episodes. And if you haven't heard us yet, go start at number 1 and just listen through, because there's so much to offer. And Gary, you've been such a wonderful part of this team. It's my podcast. It's something I started years and years and years and years ago, kind of in pre-production. But Gary joined on and he said, Larry, I'm there for you. I'm going to be there for you whenever you need me. And he's been there right from the get-go. And we've had other special guests, but my goodness, Gary, you're not even a guest anymore. You're just a member of the family when it comes to the podcast.
Thank you.
So please, listeners, there's a few things we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about our podcast. So go to number 1 and just download all of them just for our stats, because we want to have stats. So obviously we have, hundreds of thousands of listeners and thousands of downloads all over the globe. But we also have...
We have 5 million people watching us.
Well, we have 5 million people watching us on YouTube. That's exactly it, Gary. Yes. We have, 12,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel with our webisodes. And we've got eight webisodes there, Gary, that deserve some attention because there's some incredible information there.
That's blown up.
So if you guys get a chance to go on to www.youtube.com/woodenthusiasts, you're going to be able to look up our channel and you're going to love it. Trust me. 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 You guys are going to love it. There's so much good information there. Aren't I right, Gary?
I think I'm going to go have some chips in a bit.
Oh, you're going to have a snack? Oh, Gary, it's past your snack time, Gary. It's 9:48 p.m., Gary. Usually snack at 9:30.
Chips and go out to the shop.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I got to get it to the shop for another few hours before the clock ticks, as they say,
That's right.
So thank you so much for joining us. Check us out on YouTube. Follow us, please. We need followers because that's why we do this show for you. Specifically, just click follow, whatever, what is it called, Gary? Whatever form they're using? No, whatever their podcast provider is. What's a podcast provider called, Gary? Platform, Gary. Whatever your platform is, just click follow, click download, and notifications. So every time you get a new one, you guys can be up to date. So thank you so much from Gary and Larry from Wood Enthusiasts. Gary, would you have a goodbye to say, Gary?
Goodbye.
Well done, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you guys so much, and happy 2019.
Well, I'm a wood enthusiast. enthusiast. I love to look and build and cut and have a sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you wood, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. Sycamore, oak, aspen, pine, and fir, hemlock, maple, willow, dogwood, and poplar, ash, hickory, beech, tamarack, and cedar, hawthorn, jack pine, buckeye, cherry, and birch. 'Cause I'm a wood enthusiast. I love to look and cut and build and have a sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you wood, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. 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 Enthusiast.